All right, waiting for the machine to fire up, and there it is. Welcome home, Bitcoin Truth Seekers. It's Monday, February 17th, 2020. It's 1:54 p.m. here in the Arizona desert. Bitcoin's a little red today. Market's definitely a bit red, but I think things are looking pretty good. This is just a dip on the way back into Lambo mode. So let me tell you why I think that. Let's look at Bitcoin. All right, volume last 24 hours. Let's round that up to 1.3 billion. That is good. Where's most of that? It's on Binance at 730 million. And also, well, Grandma's buying some Bitcoin on Coinbase, 128 million. And Kraken definitely showing up for work today with 108 million. So, pretty rocking. So since Binance is where the action is, let's look at longs and shorts on Binance. Well, 45% longs, 54% shorts. So sentiment is slightly on the short side there on Binance, but not by much. And I do tend that Binance tends to lag a little negative. So I'm not really moved by that as far as it being a positive or negative sign. I'm going to give that a very, very neutral sign, those longs versus shorts on Binance. With that said, on the daily, Bitcoin versus Tether on the daily on Binance. Well, as you can see, yesterday was a Darth Maul candle on the daily, but it did close green. Today we have a red candle on the way down. MACD is definitely not looking very promising, so we could be seeing a downturn, but where would that turn around? Well, worst case, if we hit the 200 moving average. Now, if we go below that, then, well, who knows, right? We'll reevaluate life and stuff like that at that point. But for right now, worst case, if we were to hit that 200 moving average and bounce, and I don't see why we wouldn't, Bitcoin's pretty strong. That is riding right at 88.66. So that is definitely a possible bounce spot on the daily if we go down that far. Now, 88.66, let's think about that number and look at a 4-hour chart. Okay, here's a here's looking at on the 4-hour. Looking at it from basically when we first broke the 200 moving average a while ago, January 2nd, and we've been above the 200 moving average, and we still are above the 200 moving average. That is the white moving average here, and the 314 is actually this purple one here. But so we're above the 200 moving average on the 4-hour. That's definitely very, very good. And of course, we still are on the daily. Well, that number of 88.66, let's see where it plays here. 88.66. Well, here's 86.50. So let's look at this. We've been hanging out where we had some support and resistance around 9,800. Well, we've been above that, but there's some nice support and resistance in the chart that matches a good deal of buy-sell volume here in the VPVR. So that's a bit of a magnetic attraction. So we got below that, but if you notice, we have not gone down to the next point of magnetic attraction where we have support and resistance in the chart and buy-sell volume via VPVR, which is around 93.50. Okay, and if you do look here, when we were up around 10,300, we definitely were building some nice buy-sell volume there. So we're looking good. I mean, I think if we continue to bounce, let's look at Bitcoin here in the 45-minute chart. This is some fibs that I did, and we did come down to the 618 fib line, which is a great place to bounce, and I'm not convinced yet that we're going to head down to the 786. We are, playing with the 618 fib line right now. I think this very moment we're above it, and let's see what happens. I mean, we're either going to head to the .5 or the .786. So let's see what happens. But with that said, if we look at the daily once again, the 200 moving average on the daily is right around 88.66, and that would be a very likely spot to bounce if things really went crappy. And well, if we look at the 4-hour chart, we have previous support resistance in the chart and a massive amount, actually the greatest amount of buy-sell volume via the VPVR right at 86.50. So unless things really go south, I just don't see a visit, past 88.66 or 86.50 if we really dump and hopefully bounce. And also, if we do look right now on the 4-hour chart, the 314 moving average is hanging out right around 86.50. Where we have previous support resistance in the chart and buy-sell volume. And if you don't bounce off the 200, you usually do off the 314, or at least there's a good chance. So if we really dump, I'm not too concerned because we have a lot of support resistance on the way down to grab us. Now, Let's look at the Bitcoin chart on the 45 minute. This is Bitcoin versus USDT, Bitcoin versus Tether on Binance. Like I say, short time frame. Yes, of course, we are under the 200 moving average, but we are hanging out at the 618. And I tell you what, if we bounce off there, epic, that would be wonderful. It is a really strong place to bounce and continue upwards. If we do so, directional index is red, but the ADX is above 25. It's at 32. That's cool, but that's the ADX is not quite as important as the directional index in my opinion. It's great that it's above 25, but we are starting to narrow. The tangent is heading towards a positive directional index. Let's hope that happens and we start rocking back up. Really, I don't see any, I would not at this moment personally have any confidence too long or too short Bitcoin. Myself, just to be honest with you, I did not move any of my, hodl position out when I saw this dump coming. I'm just riding this one out. Now, with that said, you gotta look at Ethereum. Ethereum on the 45-minute chart. This is ETH versus Tether on Binance. If you note here, just like Bitcoin is working on that 618 bounce, well, Ethereum seems to have bounced off that 618, gone past the .5, and now it's challenging the .382. So Ethereum, it is really showing up for work. And I mean, to me, the world's about Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I mean, they are the two biggest players out there. And Ethereum is definitely making a run. It's definitely showing up for work here. Let's look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Ethereum against Bitcoin on Binance. Well, crap. We might, you could call that a very, that's a wick, I know. It's a very weak connection there, and it didn't make it all the way down to the 618. But it looks like even the Ethereum versus Bitcoin did do a 618 bounce. It definitely has gotten above the .5. It didn't hang out there very long. I mean, these fibs don't quite match up, but still, I can make a weak case we did a 618 bounce there, and we also got some support and resistance. We kind of wicked through the 5. And now we are, of course, we hung out at the 382 for a while. And now we're above the .236. So it seems like, and we also are above the 200 moving average. So Ethereum versus Bitcoin. I mean, anybody who may have, hedged that direction a little bit, well, I think it's probably working out for you. Big news. All right. I'm just going to read through this very short article very quickly because we are in the midst of a bit of global uncertainty. And so far that seems to, well, except for like starting yesterday, that seems that really has helped the crypto market. Bitcoin's definitely been on the move during global uncertainty. And in my opinion, even though we're a little bit in the red recently, I don't think it's some great turn down. I just think it's, in my opinion, I just think it's a, you can say a .618 bounce before we continue up. And until we actually really, until this just doesn't look like it's even probable, until we go down past that, and we don't bounce off the daily 200 at 88.66, and also this 4-hour chart, if we don't, get some magnetic attraction, if we don't hang here and bounce at 86.50 or start going sideways, I mean, really, until we really dump a bit more, I'm seeing it as a 618 bounce on the way back to Lambo mode. I think we're still in Lambo mode, to be honest with you. So with that said, big news once again. I'll read this really quick because check out what's happening in the world. And it may seem like, Bitcoin's a little bit volatile recently, but let's compare it to some, world events here. With that said, I'll read this quickly. Traffic jams are a nuisance for road users, but off the west and east coast of Australia, there are marine traffic jams as bulk carriers which normally carry iron ore and coal to China are riding at anchor because even if they take on a load, there's no guarantee they will be able to unload. And I want to note here, this is why Ethereum, I think, might be on the way up. I mean, it could be for many reasons, but people are working on using Ethereum as a mode of commerce, of exchanging funds for international shipping. It's in the works. Do your research. There's people who are about to make that happen. And from what I've heard, it might even be happening in some places. So with that said, I'm going to keep going. China's, because the smart contracts you build that are built into Ethereum or that you can use with Ethereum, that way if you get your load to China, they can't say we don't want it. Well, the smart contract has to close, and it will, and you're going to get your funds because you showed up. Think about it. With that said, back to the article. China's fight against COVID-19, the coronavirus, has slowed all forms of commerce in the country with knock-on effects. being increasingly felt elsewhere, both in countries which sell material to China and countries which rely on Chinese goods in their supply chains. Full house at Port Hedland, and by the way, Port Hedland is it's in Western Australia. I did not know that. At Port Hedland, a survey of shipping by the Marine Traffic website shows an inner harbor where iron ore loading takes place, clogged with at least 15 bulk carriers at berths, which might be called a full house. But offshore, the picture becomes more impressive, or ominous actually, because there are at least another 35 bulk carriers riding at anchor, waiting their turn to load, which, given the state of trade with China, could mean a wait of weeks and perhaps longer. So, I mean, think about this. China's not buying raw materials to make stuff. Back to the article. The same picture of ships riding at anchor can also be seen at other bulk cargo ports around the world as China limits imports to cope with a countrywide industrial slowdown caused by sections of the economy being placed on quarantine. Ship chartering, never cheaper. A measure of the problem for ship owners caused by China's virus fight can be seen in a usually reliable form of economic activity, the Baltic Dry Index. Keep your ears and eyes open for that. You're going to be hearing about the Baltic Dry Index a lot in coming weeks and possibly months, which provides a composite picture of the cost of hiring a bulk carrier. Last week, the capsize component of the BDI, which measures the cost of hiring a bulk carrier capable of carrying between 150,000 and 400,000 tons of dry cargo, mainly iron ore and coal, fell into negative territory for the first time since it was created in 1999. Shipping companies aren't moving anything. This is crazy. This is a big deal. I would suggest when you're at the store, get an extra can of beans or two and some storable food. Get some of that prepper stuff you like, because this is heavy shit. With that said, the index fall from 5,000 points in the middle of last year to less than zero means that some ship owners are almost certainly running at a loss. And I'll throw you a little knowledge I have about these ships, having worked on them actually, is 55 to 65 55-gallon drums of oil an hour, diesel fuel basically, to get these things moving. It's crazy. They cost a lot to run. With that said, a similar picture can be seen in the collapse of rates to hire oil tankers, where the cost of a supertanker has fallen by 75% over the past month to around $24,000 a day. Last October, the going rate was around $35,000 a day. I honestly think that they burn about 24 grand in fuel a day plus. So this is a big deal. The impact of the shipping slowdown is being felt across a range of industries, and while ship owners are wearing the immediate cost of having their assets idled, there is a human cost, as crews being laid off or stuck on ships riding at anchor while port services are paralyzed. So these big tankers that cost a lot to run are just sitting there, and it's because China's not buying. And if you think about, also, I could point to other articles. I didn't put them here in the daily view today, but there are many ships that are just sitting out anchored at other ports around the world from China, where the ports are saying, hey, until you are quarantined for 14 days and we get the okay, you're not going to touch our port. And so Chinese goods are sitting idle. They can't get unloaded around the world. Big stuff going on. Okay, with that said, one last interesting article. Some say this recent dump is because of this ass clown, Muchin, whatever his name is. He's this globalist, awful character that comes and says horrible things once in a while, and whatever. Whenever you see this guy speak, it's just, he's god awful. Maybe this has something to do with it, maybe not. Basically, it's the U.S. Financial Crimes Watchdog preparing significant crypto rules, warns Treasury Secretary Munchin, whatever. Just garbage. I don't know if that's really what's making the dump that we're seeing today. I think it might actually be natural. But what I can say if you don't like just globalist ass clowns like this, buy Bitcoin. Not financial advice. That's what I do. That's what I do. Whenever I get angry when I see these horrible people just spit their nonsense, I buy Bitcoin. That's my self-therapy, to be honest with you. I don't just want to believe, I do believe. It's a peaceful revolution, and it's important, and I'm glad you're here. Obstacles can't stop you, weather can't stop you, heartbreak can't stop you, failure can't stop you, only you can stop you. Hey, by the way, like, share, and subscribe. Click that little ding button. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow.